most important polls anywhere in India and around the world. You've seen how much we prize our relationship with this city, how quickly that has grown, and our ambitions, how they come together here in this great city. Our beautiful new consulate, its caring art which reflects the local art of this area, the care with which we have thought through the experience of Indians coming to an American building. And it represents an investment in our relationship with India, with Telangana and this region, as well as our future together as partners. I arrived last night, and I started my trip with a visit to Chalmahala Palace, share a meal with local experts and leaders, academics, former diplomats, and others who have told me about the incredible history of this former capital and a place that has been a World Heritage Site for hundreds and hundreds of years. Today, I started the morning visiting the Mitra Clinic, which delivers health and wellness services to the transgender community here in Hyderabad, building a city of belonging for everyone. Then I toured the Y-Axis Foundation's Education USA Advising Center in Jubilee Hills, talked with young Hyderabadi students who are on their way to studying in the United States, and saw how the Indian dream mirrors the American dream so closely. I also got a taste of the local higher education system by visiting the Indian School of Business and seeing the excellence and the way that it's contributing not just to future Indian business leaders, but to the study of business globally. And then I visited our new consulate to have a town hall, meet our incredible team, the folks doing the hard work of ensuring that this consulate not only looks beautiful in its form and structure, but is producing beautiful work by the people inside. And then, of course, came here to T-Hub to see what is said to be the largest incubator anywhere in the globe, to see the impressive role that Telangana is playing in not just a startup ecosystem, but translating ideas and dreams into reality and to jobs. And tonight, I'm so excited to live history and to celebrate the 247th anniversary of American independence and participate in a formal inauguration of that beautiful new consulate. And tomorrow, I hope to visit the Charminar and tour the Paiga tombs, where the United States government has provided funding to the tune of $250,000 to support the conservation and the restoration of 6 tombs built between the 18th and the 19th centuries. So it's a very busy schedule. My first, but certainly not my last visit here. But it should be as it is, because it's a mirror of this moment in time, when the US-India strategic partnership has never been deeper, never been stronger. I want to thank President Biden, who asked me to come here as US Ambassador to India, a country I first visited when I was 14 years old. And as President Biden's personal envoy, I know how deeply he feels about this relationship, identifying it as, in many ways, the most critical relationship we have in the world. This very consequential relationship, this natural friendship, is something that Indians and Americans feel every single day in calls to family members, in visits from friends, in new business deals that are being made right now, even as I speak here at this podium. And when I came here first as a teenager, I learned so much about India. I learned how deeply we are connected to one another across this planet. No matter where we live, no matter what language we speak, how much money we have, or how we worship, we really are one people. And I learned the importance of building a world in which those connections are shortened and in which those bridges are built even faster. So much has changed since I came here first in 1985, but what hasn't changed is the spirit of India, the warmth of its people, its ties to a civilization that stretches back millennia, and its contributions to the world in the past, present, and future. Of course, in other ways, so much has changed. As a teenager, I never could have imagined the growth. In fact, driving at night through this city, I could see an India that I bet Indians and certainly Americans have only closed their eyes and dreamt of. But as I said, it is right here in Hyderabad. I can see that the leading power of the world that India is becoming is expressed not just in the formal power, but the economic might, the creative power, and the entrepreneurial spirit manifested here. And the growth and the progress of our relationship has also grown together. The year that I graduated from college, after studying Hindi and Indian cultural and religious history, US-India ties had languished for too long. Our annual trade was just $2 billion. Our development relationship was a one-way flow, and our defense trade was zero. Our military interoperability was non-existent, and nobody was really thinking of a US-India strategic partnership. Today, look at us. US is now India's largest trading partner. Last year, $191 billion in bilateral trade. India has almost 200,000 students in the United States, and last year, the #1 source of students from abroad to America came here from India. Our militaries train together. The largest training exercises India does are with the United States. And we're working towards an Indo-Pacific that is safe, secure, and prosperous. The 4 Ps, as I call them: peace, prosperity, planet, and people. We are working together to strengthen so that our people can be tied more closely together, our planet can be more protected, our prosperity can be pursued, and peace can be ensured. Whether it's renewable energy and climate change, whether it's the next pandemic or our experience of this past one, we are working together not just as partners, but as deep, caring friends. And we're jointly addressing these toughest challenges and generating and delivering the next generation of critical and emerging technologies, some of which are probably being thought of in this building today or built across the street. So we stand at a crossroad of history, an opening of a new consulate, celebration of our independence, and a celebration of the friendship that we have between one another. Before I came to India, I spoke to President Biden about his vision for this US-India partnership, and he stressed how critical this moment is. It will be expressed, as we just saw, when our leaders were together in Japan, shortly when we welcomed the Prime Minister to a state visit, only the 3rd time in US history that an Indian Prime Minister has come to the White House for a state visit, and less than 2 months later, when our President returns the favor and comes here for G20 and spends time with world leaders, but of course, with the Prime Minister again. This is a pivotal relationship, not just for the US and for India, but the entire planet is counting on this friendship and the deepening of these ties. So this is a moment to dream big. This is a moment to think big. This is a moment to act big. And this is a moment, if we do it right, will bring even bigger opportunities in the years to come. The Telugu poet Sri Sri Jayanti wrote a poem that in English, well, I'll try it first in Telugu. Maru pranchapun, sorry, let me start again. Maru prampanchum, maru prampanchum, maru prampanchum pilichindi. Pandandi munduku, pandadi trosuku, podam podam pai paiki. In other words, in English, which might be a little clearer, I hope that was okay. Behold, there you go, I got a little applause in the back. I paid them to applaud, so take it for what it's worth. But in English, it's just as powerful. Behold, a new world beckons. Let's move forward. Let's push ahead, and let's scale greater heights. In some ways, this beautiful poem encapsulates our ambitions as a people, our friendship as 2 friends, and also the work that we have before us to ensure that this moment is not a static moment, not just one that we celebrate and look down at how far we've come, but that we look up into the peak that we still can ascend together for the well-being of our people and of this world. Thank you so much, and with that, I'm happy to answer questions. Yes, sir.
I am Kurmanad. I work for Hindu Business Line newspaper.
Good to meet you.
I will start on a lighter note.
Yes.
The poem that you quote,
Yes.
Sri Sri was a staunch communist.
Nice.
Good to hear a quote from a communist from you.
Well, we can all agree that all of us, regardless of our political philosophies, should have that ambition of a communitarian relationship with one another, of brotherhood and sisterhood.
So, see, the year is going to be, it looks like eventful year, as you are remarking. Prime Minister Modi is visiting US on a state visit, and President Biden is coming to India. So it is back-to-back, eventful year it is going to be. What are the top issues on the agenda?
So I think most ambassadors in the world are very jealous of me right now. Go ahead, if you want to take the microphone. You want to go? Because if you get one visit of your president to the country that you represent, that you're living in, it's a great year. If you get the leader of the country that you're in to come to Washington, it's a great year. If they can meet maybe one time someplace else, it's a great year. In 4 months, our leaders will meet 3 times face-to-face and probably meet one more time after that later in the year. So it's an extraordinary moment. This is something, as I said, that feels natural, it feels warm, but it also feels deep. This is not transaction between 2 states. It is a relationship of friendship between 2 nations, of people. And I think, as I said, those 4 Ps, of peace, of prosperity, of work on our planet, and connecting our people, will be what you see when the Prime Minister comes to Washington. And you'll see a further reflection and deepening of that when the President comes here to India. And I hope that he'll have a chance to not just visit the capital in Delhi, but maybe go someplace else in this country as well. Because to understand India, you have to see it. And to understand America, you have to see it. So while it's easy for world leaders to talk on the phone, maybe to have a teleconference together, it's so different when they can sit side by side and chat, say things that don't make any paper or television news, but look at the strengthening and the imagining of the future. So I think you can expect a deepening of our strategic relationship around defense, military ties. I think you can look at new trade between us. It's never been stronger. US companies right here invest billions of dollars since 2014 to create 100,000 jobs just here in Hyderabad. But I think a lot of Americans don't realize Indian companies are investing in the United States now. Companies who are investing in infrastructure, investing, for instance, one company is looking at a steel plant in the middle of Ohio, where we would lose those jobs were it not for Indian investment, and helping us to create wind turbines that will be manufactured in America and that can help us address climate change. And when it comes, I think, to those final 2, the planet and people, for our planet, we need to determine together how we can address from the ocean floor to the heavens, the work that needs to be done in space, conservation, biodiversity, making sure our oceans are healthy and also free for commerce. And the last piece, the people, which we will hope to see during the visit, is not just the expression of 2 men who have a similar background, who came from modest means and who work, I think, very hard to deliver material benefits to folks. But I think, secondly, it's about bringing more Americans to India. Indians and India know America and Americans very well. I think Americans need to know India and Indians better. So it's educational exchanges, it's culture. Look here, it was Tollywood that created the best song of any movie and won an Academy Award this year with Natu Natu. When you see our ability to be able to bring cultural and people-to-people ties, I think you'll see that reflected as well. So it's going to be a great visit. We're very excited. And no one visit defines our relationship. That work happens 365 days a year, but it'll be a wonderful night to celebrate that work.
We have time. We have time for 2 more questions.
Good afternoon.
Sorry.
I'll come back to you if we have time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
good afternoon, Ambassador. My name is Uma Sudhir. I'm Executive Editor with News Channel NDTV here. Something you mentioned, and Kurmanat too, we're going to have a lot of exchanges this year and visits as well. You've spoken about the India-US relations capable of bringing counterbalance in the world. And you mentioned that this planet is counting on this friendship.
Yes.
That was very critical. I mean, I want to ask you 2 parts of that same thing. Is it because of the big numbers, biggest population in the world that we have, big economy that we have, big numbers of Indians that you have in the US? Or, of course, we are a big market? And strategically, of course, we are important. So I want you to comment on both these things. Friendship, why is it critical to the rest of the world? And you also expect that India is going to be playing a bigger role on the world stage?
Absolutely.
And in those factors, is Mr. Narendra Modi's own leadership also a reason why India is playing a bigger role?
So, look, it's both, this is important both because of quantity and quality. So yes, of course, the 2 largest democracies in the world, the oldest democracy, the largest, the 2 largest. So now India is also saying it's the oldest, but we're the oldest continuous, whatever you want to say. 2 great democracies. The world is looking not just to the quantity, the number of Indians and Americans in the world, and our impact on everything from climate to economy, but it's also the qualities. What are the values that underlie our democracies? that when we talk about women's empowerment, and both of us say that, it has an effect on the world stage. When India, with its leadership of G20, the Prime Minister and the rest of India, its states, its people, its businesses, its NGOs, can have a huge impact on being a bridge between the developed and developing world. It's no longer a question of being neutral or non-aligned. It's a question about standing up and being able to say we are the bridge, not just into India, but into other countries that are going through the same transformation of urbanization, of economic equity, of empowering women, of making sure everybody belongs regardless of who they are, where they come from, what language they speak. So I think it's both quantity and quality. I do believe it's a reflection of our leaders, but I also remind people, as good as our leaders can be, we each have to be leaders too. There's a leader out there who's a business leader today, and she's an entrepreneur who's picking up the phone to talk to somebody in the United States. And that call may change her life and change the life of her family, her community, her city, and her country. It may be like this morning when I went to a transgender clinic, and I had, as mayor, started a transgender advisory committee in Los Angeles, the first of any big city in the world. That's talking about values that nobody should be discarded, nobody should be isolated, nobody should ever be left alone. So I think it's both quantity and quality. It's a reflection, yes, of our leaders, but also of ourselves.
So we'll take one more question over there, and then we'll come back over here.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
This is Swati Bharadwaj
Hi,
from
Swati.
the Times of India.
Nice to see
So
you.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One.
That's a good trick to sneak in too, for one.
So I wanted to ask, what are going to be your key priorities
Yes.
during your tenure in India? Second thing is about the whole visa issue. We are seeing a lot of backlogs. So how are you going to work towards, resolving this, especially since there's always a huge demand for visas from the Indian, this thing. And the other thing was on H-1B visas. Are you looking at, there's always a pressure on that.
Sure.
Any move to increase the quotas? There's already a revamp going on, right? Because of the frauds in the system.
Sure.
So, yeah, thanks.
So, so on the first one, I come to this job with experience at the local and a national and international perspective. As mayor of the city of Los Angeles for almost 10 years, I understand what it means at the neighborhood and community level to have national and international ambitions. When countries sign on to climate accords, for instance, it's usually local and state leaders who have to implement them. We are proud to be American, proud to be Indian, but we also love our neighborhood, we love our city, we love our identities. And so my priority is to help elevate what I call the 3 C's: cities, culture, and climate. I think that these are in many ways, most critical places to do work. As India goes from majority rural to majority urban, I think we can learn a lot from each other. How do we clean air in our cities? How do we build transportation systems? How do we ensure that there is clean water? How do we make sure that housing is built? And I come from a place of great humility, where there's things I think America can help India with, and there's things where India can help America. Neither of us have gotten it perfectly, but if we have that exchange in cities, we can do so much. Climate, I already spoke about a little bit, but I'm a climate warrior. This is talk to any young person, talk to your son or daughter if you have children. This will be the issue that defines our lifetimes. And right now, it's not just about preparing to try to bring down global warming. We have to mitigate heat today for people. I spoke in Ahmedabad to a woman who's a construction worker. She says, I can't hold the bricks anymore in the middle of the day. It's too hot literally for my hands. So this is not a crisis of tomorrow, this is a crisis of now. And we have to figure out ways that we can mitigate to bring down temperatures in our cities today, not just in the future. And culture, here I am in Tollywood. I come from Hollywood. I love sports. Maybe if I added one more C, it would be cricket. I'm going to be going to the IPL final on Sunday. I'm sorry for Hyderabad and for Delhi, where I live, that we didn't have the best teams this year, but I'll watch. And I think whether it's hosting the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028 and connecting sports, those are the 3 C's that I see. Visas, let me pivot to that. I think I've spoken to the press, are a top priority for me, and a top priority for our president. We know nothing reflects the closeness of our relationship more than the incredible demand for visas from Indians to come to the United States. I said it was a good problem to have, but I didn't say that as a throwaway. It reflects the closeness of our people. Already, I want to thank our consulate work here. We've seen it go from 1,000-day waits to less than a year. But a year or 2/3 of a year is still too long, and we know that. We're on track this year to process more than 1 million visa applications, to shatter every record that we've ever had. We've opened up the first student visas. The appointments, they quickly filled up, but we want students who have been admitted to know that in June, July, and August, we will have more appointments, and we will be able to make sure that you have access to the visas that you need. In Hyderabad, we're on track to double the number of officers we had from just a couple years ago to process our visas. So this is a high priority, and we're working with the government of India to say, help us help you, continue to authorize more consular officers. You'll see tonight an amazing consulate with so many windows, but we don't have enough people for those windows yet. Working together with the government of India, we hope to see that. Lastly, you asked about the H1. That's something that Congress has to do, so that's the legislative branch. But certainly we want to make sure that it's done honestly and fairly, always cracking down on where there's fraud and assuring people that this is something that is in the interest of both America and other countries, especially India, the #1 source for H1B visas.
And we have time for one last question.
This is Divakar from PTI.
I can take both. Do we have time for both, or do we have to go?
We take two at one time.
Okay, why don't I hear them both and then I'll answer them.
Yeah. Hi, this is Navina from the Daily Pioneer. Just last week, the US State Department has released a report on religious freedom in
Yes.
India. And the MEA in India has rejected it outrightly, saying that it is motivated and biased. So how do you deal with such frank exchanges when you are talking about a partnership and 3 more visits to be in the pipeline?
So I believe in our core that we share the same values. Between Indians and Americans both believe in a sense that all people should belong in our countries and belong in our world. And when it comes to specific cases, obviously I'd refer to the report, I think, where there's countless hours that go into that. But what I will say is that the United States is deeply committed to protecting religious freedom in all countries of the world. It's a key foreign policy priority of ours. And each year, this release of this report is an opportunity to highlight not just what's gone wrong, but as you'll see if you read the report carefully, where there's been good responses to the human nature that unfortunately does often lead to attacks, to unfortunate incidents. So we seek not to have a conversation where we're talking down to people, but to highlight and have a frank conversation. Both directions. America, with all due respect, also has these problems too, and we need to solve them together. People who hold these values of belonging need to make sure that human rights, including freedom of religion and belief, and the responsibility of governments to protect that, are alive and well. So we'll have those conversations as friends. We'll have those conversations both privately, and sometimes we have the public pronouncements. But I think the end goal is the same. How do we build cities? How do we build countries and a world of belonging? And the United States stands for that.
And one last quick one from ZTI.
This is Divakar from PTI. You spoke about bilateral trade between India and USA. Where do you see the figure going up in the next 5 years? And what are the areas, what are the sectors that would contribute to the growth? And my second question, what are the challenges that India is likely to face during its presidency of G20 this year?
So we're very excited to see G20 here in India. First of all, as an ambassador, it means I get to see every cabinet member come through. We get to see our superstars come through India, and more importantly, take some of India back home with them. You know, I told folks we have such a strong bridge between our countries, but if you take the bridge from India to the United States, it feels like a very strong steel bridge. And when you come from the United States back to India, it's a little bit of a rope bridge that needs to be strengthened, because we don't have enough Americans who come here and understand this remarkable rise of India, of her incredible leadership on the world stage, and the possibilities of where we can act together. We saw this with Secretary Raimondo, our Secretary of Commerce's visit here, where she won hearts and minds, but also deepened the work we can do economically. Secretary Austin, who's come before our Defense Secretary, looking at how startups and companies here are co-producing and for the long term can be able to really embed our defense systems and our industrial base together. So I love the word that India has talked about for its leadership in G20, bridge. Bridge between the past and the future, a bridge between North and South, a bridge between East and West. Now G20 is a place where we also will speak our truths, where we have to point out the moral moment of an unprovoked invasion of Russia in Ukraine. But that doesn't mean it's the only thing we will talk about. We want to make sure that where most of the world comes together and sees that as a clear moral moment that we have to stand up, that borders matter and that sovereignty is sacred, something I know that India and Indians understand. We too have to look at everything from health and global health, not just ending tuberculosis here in India, but globally. The work that we can do on HIV and AIDS together, the work we can do to prepare for the next pandemic, the way we can look at the amazing UBI system here and look at democratizing payments, the technology that's coming out of India, not just the back office, but the front office, preparing IP, conservation, biodiversity, women's empowerment, those themes that I'm talking about. I think this government here in India and the governments of the states of India are very fluent in this conversation. And so I love that people are traveling to states and seeing all of India and taking some of India home. And the last thing I'll say at the beginning of your question, my time here as ambassador is not just about solving the problems of today. It's preparing us for the next 20 to 50 years. This relationship is not going anywhere, and it's only going to deepen. I think it's a natural friendship. I think it's a relationship in which we are both destined to continue to not only come together as two nations, but our relationship together can make a huge impact on the world for the better. And we need to prepare for the capacity to manage this relationship, not just for next year, but for the next 50. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you to members of the media for coming.
I know we had other questions, but we'll try to answer them another time. Thank you all so much. Thank you.